Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We just have a moment of silence for what's going on across the world, across seas, and for the 9/11 Memorial Day that is coming upon us soon. Thank you. Okay, so just going to call this meeting tonight, September 9th, a special meeting. Got some things to talk about, so we're going to call the meeting to order. And Superintendent, we're going to talk about some review of the opening plan, correct?
Yes, so as we have been doing the past two meetings, we talked about the flexibility in our plan and being able to adjust and modify as we go along. I really want to appreciate all of you taking the time to meet today so that we can have a timely meeting to start adjusting some of our decisions that we made in late August. In what I handed you, I put some highlighted areas in the opening plan. The first one starts on, it's the fourth page of the document, but really the third page of the plan. And it starts talking about PTA-sponsored school events. And we had talked about modifying the events and adapting them to see if they could be outdoors, which is always a great idea. But in light of having discussions with Town of Babylon superintendents who are allowing indoor spectators to volleyball and gymnastics, I'm recommending that we allow as well, since other TOB school districts are. And in light of that, we look at some of the protocols we have in place for our own community events, which would be something like a PTA-sponsored event. So what I'm recommending is that we would allow that based on following district protocols. So an example may be like a painting night would be allowed socially distant and masked. I would caution against high-risk activities such as dances where kids are in close proximity, but there are some events like book fairs that maybe could be done at night, or events that can be sponsored by PTA within the building that I think can be done safely. And the reason behind that is I feel like if we're going to invite community members from other communities to come watch our sporting events, I believe that we should be able to do things safely with our own community within our school. So kind of finding some latitude here and then evaluating to see how we're going regarding infection rate in the district, and then if we have to adjust again, adjust from there.
Absolutely. So anyone have anything they want to discuss about that? I mean, I think that's a great plan, a great start to getting some things back to normal. If we can say those words these days. We're usually not saying those words normal anymore. So anyone want to start a discussion? I mean, I think
it's appreciative. I think everybody's heard from different parents in the sports world for indoor sports, volleyball and stuff.
Yeah, so I got I think 2 or 3 emails. I had the athletic director send out a message through the coaches for the indoor, like to let the parents know that we would be meeting today to review that protocol, so that they got a response from the athletic director. And I think it is an appropriate measure at this point. You know, speaking with colleagues, they're allowing it. Actually, in the guidance that recently came out, you see that under athletics, the only guidance is from the CDC, and basically it says we shouldn't be playing anyway.
right.
So the guidance is high-risk sports should be virtual. We can't play football virtually. So, everyone in the county is playing their athletics, and the town about
all the kids on PlayStation would disagree with you.
Well, true. That, you're right. You're absolutely right. So I think it's important that if we're going to allow in spectators, it would be masked, of course, and socially distant, and that we look at some of the activities that maybe our PTA want to run in the evenings to follow district protocols and allow that to happen as well.
Are we going to have a restriction like 2 per player, or is it?
No, so there wouldn't be, those restrictions really came from the county when we implemented them, and there was a whole protocol where every kid in every school district was given passes from their school, so they would show up and they would either be on a gate list for us or have a pass from their school district. At this point, nobody's utilizing those passes, so we wouldn't know, like a visiting team, we wouldn't be able to say, well, you can only have 40, because we wouldn't know what 40 that is. So it would be, how many can we fit in the space socially distant? I have to say though, For our volleyball team, we have 24 girls on the varsity, which is the largest of our indoor sports right now. And if we had 2 or 3, and the other team brought 2 or 3, we would be large enough in our big gym to fit that many people socially distant. So we would just have to monitor it, make sure people are masked, make sure they're sitting socially distant. And adults have to be 6 feet apart according to the regulation.
In pods though, right?
So if it's a household, they can sit together. So, you know, coming from the same household, they can sit together and then separated by 6 feet with other households.
And can you explain a little bit more the PTA-sponsored school events?
Yeah, so I was thinking about, and I have to work through what those exactly are on our calendar, but book fairs, I was thinking about, I know like PASA does a paint night, which I know is not PTA, but and some events that could occur for kids in a school building in the evening, that can be done safely. But really staying away from any of the high risk, like a dance. I would not recommend a dance where kids are dancing in close proximity and there would be food maybe in a separate location that may be in a crowded area. I think it would be upon approval of the building administration, and I would provide guidelines to the PTA council to disseminate and to the principals regarding the types of activities in the building.
So just to clarify, and go further down on our pages in building use and in groups, PASA, Touchdown Club, PTA Council, Adult Ed. Adult Ed is the only one that's highlighted, or we highlighted all of them?
So they were already approved. Adult Ed was the only one that we did not say could run at this point. So I highlighted it and added it to this list to say, I would like to add Adult Ed as an official use for our building if run socially distant and masked and safely. So the only change to that particular one was adding Adult Ed. PASA, Touchdown Club, and PTA Council, those were more for meetings, not events. So I would have to clarify, it'd probably be a good idea that I put it in a separate box that says events. So like the Touchdown Club, they run their meals on Fridays. And we are approving that because we do eat in the cafeteria. We just said to the Touchdown Club, limit the amount of adults you have and make sure you're socially distant and make sure the kids are sitting socially distant when they eat at the individual tables that are in our cafeteria.
Just one of the other questions. The Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, being that the PTA now have sponsored events, you know, children, students, as long as they're socially distanced, is there any thought for those organizations?
I mean, I'm up to any conversation. I haven't given that thought because I felt like we had less control, but that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. So if the board wanted to discuss, I'm just not, I would like to see a list of how many outside organizations other than Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts utilize our building, but I think if they were to use our buildings to do their meetings, that it would be appropriate as long as they followed our district protocols. So that may be some, those two I can say probably fit in nicely here and would be fine. And the board approves all building use anyway through your agenda, so you would know, and maybe we could take it organization by organization.
I would like to do that.
If the board's interested in that, that could be one of the amendments as well.
Yeah, I think the point you were making, the type of event that they're running. If they're running a meeting, you know, a den meeting with their kids, you know, that's
Right.
okay. That's like a PTA meeting.
Yeah, I agree.
And listen,
Right.
because the
Right.
space is defined,
You know.
so we would know what needed to be cleaned. We would just have to make sure the events end in a time where our custodians still have time to clean before their shift's over. Because we're not doing that fog cleaning now, we're doing regular cleaning and then a deep cleaning. But we're not fogging the rooms like we've done in the past.
I have one comment.
Go ahead.
So for the winter sports, I think it brings a bigger crowd. To piggyback on what Keisha brought up, I guess we have about 11 weeks, so we might want to think about basketball and wrestling and maybe decide if we want to go back to 2 people.
Yeah, I think definitely needs to stay on our radar, and we have to monitor. I think, Jeff, and I'm just guessing, I'm telling you that at some point Section 11 is going to have to come out when we go to full indoor sports at that level of capacity, because Wrestling and basketball, both girls and boys, bring high attendance, which is very different than fall sport attendance because there are many more people who play. So, and also for us, our wrestling is in the North Gym, which is much smaller in bleacher size. So we have to really look at that, and maybe we'll keep that as a part of our conversation in reviewing the opening plan as we go along to be prepared. And maybe we say for indoor spectators, fall sports only at this point, like we put that clarification in there. And winter to be determined in a future date, I can put that in the box there. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay. If you
Section 11 said anything about just hometown fans and not visiting fans?
So Northport isn't allowing visitors. That was the only one I heard of in Western Suffolk BOCES that wasn't allowing visitors from opposing teams. Everyone in our group is. And Section 11, I have to tell you, maybe smartly, is staying out of the conversation because nobody is regulating right now. So they're like, it's running and school districts have to make their own decisions. Because it was so regulated last time by Section 11, or Section 9 to
Like when we get to the winter, when we have bigger crowds, that might be an option that we think about.
We may look at not allowing visitors and giving 2 passes to each of our basketball players and wrestlers so that our parents, and stream through Huddle for the visitors. So we have options to look at. So we'll just keep it for fall sports and then look at options for winter when we get closer to those times. I do want to mention, since we're speaking about sports, it's my intention to run homecoming parade and tailgate outdoors, typical, because outdoors unmasked, I think that we can do it safely. I think we can find space out in our stadium to do that. So at this point, we don't have like specific plans. I haven't met with Jason, we haven't finalized it, but that's the direction I'm going. I want to make sure the board is comfortable with that, that we're still keeping that as, right at this moment, as typical. All right, if you turn to the last page. Oh, the Pep Rally, Dr. Klein brought me today. We're going to do the Pep Rally outside, out on the football stadium. I thought it was a very appropriate activity to have outside. I think kids should have that. It's a great celebratory experience for students, so we'll allow that outside. So you see on the last page, the biggest change here, you see the mandatory COVID testing, P12, which just came out on September 2nd. So I'm adding that. It has been advised through Versio to add that to our opening plan. It requires that all staff in a school district P12 have mandatory COVID testing weekly. You can opt out of that by providing proof of fully vaccinated, by being fully vaccinated. Today, this evening, an email went out to the entire staff of a data collection of anyone who would like to opt out of COVID testing so that we can start figuring out how many of our staff are going to participate in weekly testing. As soon as that's done, it looks like the county is going to set up testing sites by township. One in the town of Avalon, town of Huntington, town of Brookhaven, town of Smithtown, to have access to free testing. And then there are also the additional sites that provide free testing. So after we find out, so the timeline was immediate. That's what the regulation said, implement immediate. There is no really immediacy when you have to collect the information, and we don't even have the testing site set up yet. So we're in step 1, which is collect the information to see how many would need testing. I've already spoke to the county about estimating approximately how many of our staff would need testing. So they have our information and know that we're going to participate in their program for testing. The staff would have to do that, and then we would have a system of how they would have to upload it weekly. And then through Barbara's office, she would then be collating the lists of here are the people that are required testing, and here are the people who uploaded the testing. And then we'd have to go through a process of each week making sure that the individuals who need testing test each week. So as we get closer to that step, I'll keep you guys involved. The email, I think I sent it to the board today before I sent it out to the staff. I gave you the sample survey that we're using. I sent it out, and probably within 15 minutes, we had about 50 people already fill it out on the staff. So we'll continue to monitor that. And that's going to close on Sunday so that we can start on Monday collating the data, looking at who needs testing, and be ready for the week after.
So testing has to, it says immediate, but when is reality?
Reality is if they're not setting up the county sites till September 19th, I would imagine the week after that would be a reality for us. And it'll give us time to get all the information and get it situated in our system and find a way to collect it and then monitor it. That's going to be the difficult part.
You're not collecting the vaccine cards, you're copying.
Picture of the vaccine card, or a picture of Excelsior Pass,
And that's
or a
saved.
picture of documentation that stays in my and Barbara's only due to HIPAA. So the only two people who have access are the two of us.
Okay.
Those staff members that need to have testing, is that done on their time?
As far as everything that I've read now, it's on their own time. There's no conduit for release time or any of that nature. So
Now, is that a quick rapid test, or is it something?
you're allowed to do a rapid test for that. Yeah.
Are you continuing to use the dashboard to report?
Yes. So the COVID dashboard is up on the website. So it reports daily by 3 p.m. the cases that are reported in the district. And then there's a cumulative number of cases and a positivity rate. So that same dashboard from last year is up and running. We have had some cases in the district already, so they're listed there. And I have not done letters and announcements similar to last year. As the amount of robocalls and announcements, it would be incumbent upon the community member to check the dashboard. And of course, we are doing contact tracing just like we had to last time. So if you are deemed a close contact, you would be contacted by, if it's a student or a staff member, by the personnel office, letting them know about the quarantine rules and release from quarantine. I put on here Board of Education meetings just for the mere fact that you are now permitted by the new statute to have virtual meetings. So I put in here in person, masked and socially distant, but you have the ability to do virtual meetings should we need to. And I believe that's through January 22nd, 2022. So I wanted to put that on here. And then I put use of concession stand because we were asked about that, and I put maybe used as typical. So there is no guidance regarding shared food or like having individual wrapped food. So outdoors, if we can have people stand socially distant on a line and get food, I think it would be appropriate since it's outdoor and you are permitted to be unmasked outdoors. And then the staff who work it would need to be masked, and we can't have it crowded in there, for the workers. It's not a big space, so yeah, right. And like, we're not going to have the whole band go to the side door,
Yeah.
So we have to be really cautious and do it the right way. Set up some line areas and put maybe some marks down so that people know how to stand in line. Then do it the right way.
Everybody gets a pretzel and a hot dog, that's it.
Right? And it's $10. So those were my recommendations regarding any changes to our current plan. Does anybody have any questions about those or any other things that came up regarding our opening plan?
The only thing I don't remember reading it, if they don't get tested, right, or come back positive, they're out they're out.
So if it comes back positive, then you're COVID positive, you're home, and you would have to notify the personnel, your immediate supervisor, then the personnel office gets the name, and we work with them. Now, if they test positive, they're going to be automatically uploaded to the county system through their positive test, and their quarantine would be dictated by that positive test, by the county. So they would get a letter from the county based on their quarantine, and they would be told how long they need to quarantine.
And the vaccinated people are not subject to tests.
Correct. Fully vaccinated people do not need to test. That's why it's called like an opt-out. So it's mandatory to be tested weekly, but you can opt out by providing your documentation for being fully vaccinated. You're not required to provide it. If you don't provide it, you just have to participate in weekly testing.
So now I'm vaccinated and I'm not feeling well, right? I fill out I shouldn't come to work.
Right.
So what is the scenario there if they, because again, do they get paid or not paid
Yeah, so currently there, in New York State, there still is COVID incidents. They work with the personnel office, and it's dependent upon how many incidences you've had before. It's over the length of time of COVID, and then really each situation is individual. So if you are ill and you have to stay home, you then would speak to the personnel office, and Barbara would work with you the type of day that it is.
Great.
Yeah, what are the limitations?
So at this point, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara, it's 3 instances throughout the entire time that the law went into effect.
The second and third time have to be because you are COVID positive.
Great, I'll repeat that. So the first time, you can be a close contact and be considered mandatory home and not use your sick time. The second and third incident, you have to be the positive person. If you have to quarantine because of a close contact, you have to use your own time,
As we understand it. Today, yes.
as of today.
So for these 3 instances, say that one person has to quarantine for 10 days, and one person is out for 1 day, and then gets their test and they're negative. Are each of those considered equal
Yes.
instances of being out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, it's not the number of days, it's 3 incidences of quarantining or having to be home due to COVID.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions about opening?
What's the protocol if they don't test?
So currently, from as I read it in the memo from the attorneys, that it is a requirement in the law, and that failure to test if you're not providing your opt-out information is insubordination. So you're being insubordinate to the law, which is that you must test. So then we would have to go through a process similar to any insubordination by an employee in the district. So that would be defined by the contract. So it's different for each unit on how that's handled.
I thought you put something in here that it was part of collective bargaining.
No, so that has to do with being a preemptive or going to PERB about it being impact bargaining. So right now, the belief is that since it's a law, that it's not impact bargaining. So there's 2 different issues. One, they're saying that since it's a law, it wouldn't be impact bargaining because PERB would see it as a law that's required to be implemented. The other issue is that if you have non-compliance, so there's a difference between maybe not understanding or not being timely and outright non-compliance. So we have to evaluate each issue separately, and then we would handle it through the personnel office.
Okay.
I'd say everyone that we have spoken to, the union leads, are very supportive in making this work and realize that this is a mandate that came from the state, and we're all here to just try to keep our students engaged in learning and keep our schools open.
Yeah, I would expect it. I just want to make sure that we do that, because I shouldn't be working and reading this at the same time. This is what it comes
Could you
down to.
combine 2 sections?
Yes.
Anything else for opening? Okay. The only other topic that was asked to be put on here was the update regarding kindergarten registration. So I had emailed the board last week that over the past 3 to 5 days of school, we had many kindergarten students enrolled. At this point, we have 13 kindergarten students waiting placement and 1 spot available. So I'm opening a kindergarten class at Parliament. So remember, right before we started, we collapsed a kindergarten class at Parliament because enrollment didn't go in the direction, and we were utilizing that person for AIS. So what I'm doing is I'm utilizing the teacher from that position. The classroom space is available. Of the 13 students, 1 has a place in the home district. That child will go to the home district. The other 12 would go to Parliament Place, and any new kindergarten registrant that doesn't have space would go to the Parliament Place Elementary School for kindergarten with a new section. So we started working on the classroom immediately last week. Barbara put out some protocols working with Drew to get that up and running, and it's my hope that we would be prepared. Are we talking Monday, Barbara, to start that class? For Monday, for those students to start.
What are the other sections that Parliament at? Class size-wise?
So I brought that paper with me. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
And do we anticipate more entrants?
So currently Parliament is running 2 sections closed, 25 and 25. So there'll be these 12 students and 13 additional spaces in that kindergarten.
So is there any way, again, since it's so early in the classroom year, would it be smart to level those 3 classes out so they could be 15, 15, and 15?
I think that's really difficult, especially for kindergarten. If I was to call a parent and say, I know you've had 4 days with your teacher, but now you have to change classes. I think it's best to just start with this 12 or 13, and then I would imagine over time it's going to grow by 4 or 5 or 6 students throughout the year, and it'll land somewhere around 20. Because right now, Belmont's running 25 and 24. MGB's running, they're getting 1 student, they'll be 24, 23. And then it's 25, 25, 25, 25, and 25, 25. So you already have 3 of the 5 schools maxed. So I think it's just best to start the new class and then have the space for new registrants.
I think that's one of the things we're always concerned about. We always knew that our max was 25, but we always really like to keep that in the 20s, especially in kindergarten. But I know, again, obviously, with the changes that are going on, things are happening. But
In a more typical year, so the class size policy is actually larger than 25 for kindergarten. You guys have set a soft target of 25. So in a more typical year, we may look at, I was kind of in my head saying, well, if we went 1 more in each section of the district, we have 11 spots. But the issue is, due to COVID, we don't have space in the rooms to even add another station or desk for a student. It gets too crowded. And like you said, 25 really is it's lower than our class size policy, but a max of what you guys had looked at. And it's been all late registrations. So I think this will resolve this issue now. It's just atypical. So in my 7 years here, this is the first time that we've ever had this weird kind of registration.
So moving forward, if a student moves out of another, kindergarten student moves out of another building and lowers that class size, leaving a spot, and someone moves in, I would assume, you can tell me, the plan is for that student to go to Parliament to equalize the class size there,
Yes.
even if there's an open spot in their home school.
I would try to make sure the playing field was even, and I would look at what the class sizes were. It would be hard pressed to say to a parent that a class size is below the limit and you move there, but we're not going to let your kid go there just so that we can even our classes. So my gut right now, that since I'm hearing this for the first time, would allow a child to go to their home school if there was a spot, and if there are no spots. So right now, MGV has 3 spots available. If somebody registered for MGV, I would allow them to go there, because to say to them, well, no, we have to hold off on you because the other classes were full, you're going to go to Parliament, I think would be, I would be disheartened as a parent. So if there's room in a home school, the registrant would typically go to the home school, and then we would fill this class with the overflow.
Just the flip side of that is now you have an inequity of a kindergarten class that has 13 students, and pretty much every other class in the district has over 20. So,
And I think that happens across many grade levels, though. Like if you hit that precipice of 1 over the cap, you end up having 18, 18, 19, where other schools like DeLuca is so typical of being right at 54. And they're 27 and 27, and then you can look at other schools who hit 55 or 56, and they're running 18, 18, 19. So it's just, no matter where you set the bar, that kind of thing is going to happen, the inequities of class sizes, based on where the number falls for that region of the school district.
So just so I'm clear, so the 13 students are not all...
Three are Parliament,
Right.
and 10 are not.
So the 10 that are not,
They're from the buildings that are capped.
only from the buildings that are capped.
Yes.
Belmont and
It's it's Belmont, Woods, and DeLuca.
Right, and UV has 3 spots.
Right.
So in the entire district, there's 3 spots in MGB.
Yep, that's it.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't open like that. There's been a lot of appointments and a lot more appointments coming. Like that 13 includes appointments coming up. I had Lorraine go for this today and tomorrow, and even next week. These are kindergarten appointments coming up, so I'm trying to get it going so that they have a place to start right away.
Maybe keep us updated on that.
Yeah, and then as, of course, you know, when we go next year, we look at our class sizes, we look at, and remember going back, you know, if we have the room and the space, the students would go back to their home school. If not, the playing field would be evened at Parliament. Like it would be redistributed. If the kids had to stay at Parliament for first grade, the 25, 25, and let's say 13 or 14 or 15 would then become, you know, 65 divided by 3. Okay. So the only thing that I think we have to do as a matter of business, Matt, is that one resolution regarding adopting the opening plan as amended.
Okay. Real quick lesson too. We put out a thing for an AS teacher.
Not yet, we're just trying to get the kindergarten going, and then AIS right now, we're still developing classes, and so Drew knows that that's an available position for him, and we'll do that as soon as we get this up and going.
Talk about that stuff at the business meeting.
Yeah.
That's coming up.
If I can give you more information then.
So since our discussion, review of the opening plan, we made some adjustments. The adjustments were discussed. So be it resolved that the Board of Education approved that amended school opening plan for the 2021-2022 school year as so amended. Any motion?
Motion.
Motion, Heather, second. Second, Teresa. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstention? Motion carries. So we have volleyball parents and gymnastics parents allowed in the building. We have PTA allowed to use it. We have the concession stand being allowed to be used, and we'll make adjustments as we go along. Do we have any questions from the audience?
Of course.
Go ahead.
Okay, when you said the
Evelyn
PT,
Andel, how are you?
I'm good, a little bit confused now with you.
Thank you.
You said that the PTs could have events like a book fair. Would that just be a book fair at night, and would kids be allowed? Or would it be a book fair during the day for the kids as well?
I don't have that level of detail yet.
Okay, no, I was just kind of curious. My next question was COVID. If you had to quarantine 3 different times because you were a close contact at school, only the first time would be, like the other 2 times would be your own sick time? Is that how I understood that?
So it depends on the specific circumstances, and we work through our attorneys with that to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Sometimes there are cases where we have to quarantine you, then the district is responsible for the pay.
Okay, so if the district quarantines you. Okay, that was new.
That's always that's always what we look into. If it's your second or third time and it's from an outside contact, that's definitely not covered.
Okay.
But if it's a school issue and we tell you you have to go home, that's when we work with the attorneys to make sure we're following the vagueness of the law.
Okay, and I kind of think Bob asked my last question. That AIS teacher is not necessarily needed at this point.
Well, it is needed, so we're going to post for it, but what happens is, right now they're in the process of identifying and creating groups. So as soon as we get the kindergarten up and going, we're going to post for the AIS position. Kathy?
Hi, Kathy Shai, I'm one of the, I have 2 questions. I just want to make sure I understood correctly. So CASA is an outside group. I only put in for meetings. So am I allowed to now have an event?
Yes.
Okay, when I submit my paperwork for the event, do I need to submit like protocols or how I would keep it?
So just what the event is, and I'm going to try to write protocols faster than you put your paper in. So I want to really sit down and outline the allowable events in the building. And
I wouldn't
those
challenge
that
it.
are, I
I
know.
wouldn't challenge
She's
it.
going to go home and do it now before I even get home.
I wouldn't challenge.
I'm going to try to do them quickly. So I'll try to do them quickly so that everyone has some guidance.
All right, and my other question is, the 13 kindergarten Were they just enrolled this last week?
The last 2 days, the first 2 days of school.
So there's a really good chance you're gonna fill that class.
So yes, I think we're starting with 13 that are already on the books of coming. And that, we're only in the 3rd day of school, even though it's the 2nd week. So typically you look at the 1st of each month. So as we get close to October 1st, because of how leases and rents usually go, that we'll see where that's gonna go. But it could increase, yes.
Okay, now do these parents say why they didn't register for kindergarten? Were they not aware? Did they finally see the buses running and realize?
No, we don't ask them, we just try to get them in and get them out. Because it's been so busy at district office with registration.
Oh, no, I understand. I just like to see like what happened, because we were so down in enrollment, and now these.
But we
13
still are, just so you know, we're at
Oh,
280.
But to have 13 kids sign up in the last 2 days is like.
Very atypical for one grade.
Okay,
That was atypical.
okay.
I was thinking that was gonna happen in 1st grade, because remember how many were very low in 1st grade as well, and I was planning on this 1st grade enrollment, because you're not required by law to go to kindergarten.
Right.
I would assume too, with the September 1st date and us starting a little bit early, maybe some people that were moving into district from somewhere else might have been like, oh, they don't start till after Labor Day, we don't have to rush. You know, so maybe that was part of it.
Yeah, could be. I mean, we were putting down, Monica put ads in local papers about registration numerous times, so we were trying to get it out like on the patch, and we got it in a lot of areas because we were really trying to find these 1st graders, you know, because that was my main concern, that we wouldn't be prepared for 1st grade. And we were prepared for kindergarten, and then, you know, we only did that a week before school started. And then all of a sudden, the first 2 days of school, we have registrants.
So are we seeing them in multiple grades as well, it's not just kindergarten?
It's kind of across the district, the registrations, but there are a lot of people registering. I've noticed today was very busy as well. What I can do is in the update, I'll tell you the appointments that we have coming up so you can get an idea of how many people we're seeing a day.
That'd be cool.
All right?
Can I
All
ask
right,
something?
thank you.
Do we have, oh, sorry,
No, no.
no, that's somebody else.
Get it in.
And then we'll take 2 questions. I know you're gonna have a concession, which is great, but the locker room for football, I thought it was gonna be done, and it's not.
It's almost done.
Yeah, because they're changing in the parking lot.
Yeah, it's almost done.
Okay.
So I'm
That's
walking,
their equipment is in.
so I've been there every day.
Okay.
I'm walking tomorrow again. Frank and I and Kevin Warren at work walking tomorrow. When I was in there last, the team room, all the lockers were in, all the walls and floors were done. I was looking really on the boys' side. They had a lot of work to do in the shower area still when I was in there, but that was the Thursday before we went on break. And these days that we were off, they worked every day till 7 p.m. So 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So I have to go look at the current progress, but we were close to begin with before we left.
Yeah, it's scheduled to be done by Monday, so it's supposed to be done this weekend.
So the turnover date is Monday to us.
Okay.
I think most moms can attest they don't use the showers anyway.
Right. And they don't let people in, well, they may now because they're individual showers, and they're like, there's a changing room and individual showers, but I know wrestling is really important for showers because of the mats and that thing, but
Well, it's just because they were changing in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You might not want that.
last year storage bin, this year parking lot. We're getting there, we're getting
The second
there.
question may not be, what you're putting in place, but the unvaccinated, having to get COVID tested weekly, how come it's not really vaccinated? I know they can't get as sick, but they can be.
Yeah, they could spread it, they could be asymptomatic. So the regulation that came from the Department of Health doesn't require it. So any vaccinated person can go get tested for free weekly. They just wouldn't fill out our survey to opt out of COVID testing. They could go get tested weekly if they wanted to. These sites that are going to be free will they would require their school badge or a letter from the district. So the law just came down that way.
Yeah. Okay.
And I have to say that's a question many people have asked.
Thank you.
So.
Erica?
I just have 2 questions. First, thank you from the volleyball moms for.
Oh, you're my volleyball mom? Yeah. Oh, okay.
I have 2 questions. Has anything about the transportation being reevaluated? I know part of the surveys was asking if we were taking a bus. I've always said no, but I still get a bus pass. And I can only speak for the high school, but the north parking lot in the morning, I don't know if it's just the beginning of the day, but it seems like every
that drop-off area?
It's terrible, and I don't know if they need to.
I have to say it's
redesign
across
lights
the
or
district,
something.
and I talked to other superintendents, and they are seeing similar trends in their schools of this,
I mean, I know I'm
with
driving
the drop-off.
So, there's 3 coming out of my car, but it seems like this year, everyone is driving their kids to school, it's like no one's getting off the bus. So I don't know if there's something that, somebody can go out with, I mean, a lot of people are watching their kids walk in the building, in high school.
Yeah, I can speak to the high school principal about what's going, being day 3, maybe that'll change when
Yeah.
people are a little more comfortable and hopefully less people, but he has already spoken to me from the first day of school about an incident that occurred out there on the first day of school. So I'll speak to him again and see where we're at, and I'll go over there myself as well.
We also had a little road construction going on, so hopefully that is settled up now, and then we'll.
Yeah, it just seems, even just passing in front of the school, there's just so much traffic in there in the morning.
There is.
There's always an issue with the crossing light too, where, some people claim to think the crossing light presses the button all the time, and that way the light's red forever, so.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like there's even enough time, lights like 35 seconds to
Yeah.
pass the parking lot, that's not enough time to get.
So I can actually at the town, and I'll speak to Dr. Klum, we can change the timing of that light.
That's what I was gonna ask.
So I'll have him speak about letting that stay green longer on the school side during the morning time,
Yeah,
so that we can get everybody out in one big stream. We've done that before. It was actually, we were having issues at dismissal last year, and we needed it longer at dismissal, so let me speak to him about the morning and see what's going on with that.
that would be great. And then my only other question was about the close contact staff and students for quarantining. If you are fully vaccinated, do those people have to quarantine as well, or are they exempt?
So if you are fully vaccinated and you provide proof as a student to, does that go to you as well?
The students go
Go to the
nurse
principal and the staff go to Barbara. You only have to quarantine if you are symptomatic. If you're asymptomatic, it is recommended you get a COVID test 3 to 5 days from the day that you were a close contact, and you wear a mask, but we're already masked in school. So as long as you're not ill, you are free to continue to participate in school and your activities.
Okay, thank you.
One more.
Mr. Quick, is there a board policy on overflow, whether or not they go back to their home school the following year?
Mhm.
So those other kids who are going to Rome this year in kindergarten will potentially go back to their home school next year?
It's based on space availability in their home school.
Well, first grade, isn't it a higher staff?
It's 2 more per building. 2 more per class, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It goes to 27. So if there is space, then yes, they would be offered the opportunity to go back.
Hi, Captain Gabriel, 8 Harriet Road. I was wondering how much longer until that sensory room in DeLuca is going to be finished?
So do you have any idea? Oh, do you know what, Ms. Gabriel, the mats, the floor mats are back ordered, and I know that, did they tell you the date, approximate date, Ms. Mandy, of
I'm
those?
hoping to have it tomorrow.
So they're expecting the mats to be delivered tomorrow?
No, the date for when they're going to be delivered.
Oh, so then you heard it better than me. So they're expecting the mats to come sometime tomorrow, and then,
No.
oh, you're gonna find out tomorrow when they're
This
coming.
is going to have some additional information for me tomorrow.
Oh,
She was working on the floor mats with the wall mats and
Right.
the bathroom.
that was already taken care of last week.
Yeah, so we're just waiting to make sure they match and when they can be.
Okay. So tomorrow we'll know a better idea of an update of when the mats will be coming. But I know it was the mat issue, so the mats that we had selected got back ordered. So we changed out what we were getting so that we could get them quicker. So that's what's delaying that room. So my hope, see, for me, this should have been closed out before we started school. So my hope is before the end of September, all areas in the district regarding this project, except for the auditorium, is done.
Jennifer Dina Sally Mitchell, Alfred Street. Touching on the overflow situation, I had a situation where my son was overflowed initially when he joined the district in first grade, and then COVID happened, so second grade he was kept in at Belmont, and then he was supposed to move back this year to DeLuca. Things happen that he is still in Belmont, but did you, especially since you're putting these kids into Parliament for kindergarten, must return to their home school and possibly make adjustments to that, because that was very hard for, I know, a few students, because I know last year, any overflow students, I think there were 21 overflow students last year, or 2 years ago, and any overflow students for the 2020-2021 school year remained in their overflow school unless they wanted to go back to their home school. So just because I personally had issues with that, because my son did 2 years in the school and it was a pandemic year and all sorts of stuff like that. But going back, being forced back into a school that he had never attended, especially with everything that had happened, was a little much. And I know it's a special circumstance, but I know that it was quoted that the policy, the district policy is overflow students must return to their home schools once availability is opened. I just think that you may need to review that under certain situations. Is that something that you guys have?
So that would be up to the board policy committee to review. In the past, the policy was they must return. And now the policy is if there's space, because what was happening was 1 or 2 kids would go back and it would break a section and require the school district to hire additional teachers if teachers weren't available to move into those spots, or if there was no space in the building to create another classroom. We ran into a situation where if we were to bring a class back, there wasn't a classroom space available. So an example of that would be DeLuca. Right now, every single space is taken in that building. We had to kind of move around to make sure we got the sensory room and have spaces. So the problem would be not only the number of students, but having a classroom that we could open up for that. So the board takes all that into consideration. And as we get closer, I provide that information about the number of rollovers, the spaces available, and who can fit back into. But the board is more than welcome to, during that policy committee, review that policy and discuss it.
Yeah, I mean, it just, to me, it's, you have a kid go to a school that wasn't their, we moved into the district, went to a school that he didn't pick, and was there for 2 years, and then now is told that you have to return to your home school, but it's not a home school for him because he is now attached to another school. And I'm sure what happens when you have a kid that does 3 years in a school and then all of a sudden space opens up in their home school again. And like I said, it's just something to think about the policy, that it may need some adjustments to, or
Yeah, the board has allowed, and I believe it's in the policy, like the graduating year. So like if you're going into 5th grade, you're permitted to stay, so that you can at least move up with the kids that you spent 4th grade with. So there's that aspect of the policy. So I think that given space and then recommendations by me, we look at each case separately. But the board can look at the current policy. It's a rather lengthy policy because I think it's at the end of one of our attendance policies or something. So I could provide it to them and we could put it on, the clerk can put it on the list for if the board wants to review that.
Yeah, I remember we went through and we reviewed it, and just as you have those situations, those cases, there was contradicting ones on the other side that people, the same way, right?
But just the action, like I had to fight tooth and nail, and then I was being told that the board had already had a situation that a family came up and tried to keep their kid, and I was told that going to the board was basically like, it wasn't worth it. I had other situations, and there's IEP involved and stuff like that. But just an option for the parents to say, no, I think what's best for the child is to stay in the school that they've been in, or no, there's room and his brother and sister go to the other school.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much. Anyone else?
Just have one last question. When does the testing start?
So it said immediate.
Okay.
So to me, we're not in any place right now, but the Suffolk County locations are opening on September 19th. So I would believe maybe the week after that would be something where we could really say to people, these are the places that are open, we've collected our data, this is the group that needs to be tested weekly, and start sometime after that date.
And would it apply to, I'm employed, obviously, I work in Suffolk, those cities that I'm in.
So you go through BOCES, and then BOCES would have to make sure that you are meeting their requirement because you're employed by them, even though you're in our building. So they would be responsible for collecting your data. All right, because we don't have the data like to send it to you. So that would be their database, and then they would be responsible for letting you know. That's similar, just so you know, to contractors coming in who do work at night. Like Belfour will have to do theirs, and CIF, they have, and I send them an email with the requirement, because all contractors, including like Metro Therapy and anybody who comes in, they have to manage that and ensure that those needs are met. Okay. Cool. All right.
Thank you all for attending on this, board members, community, everyone who attended, our custodial staff, thank you for joining us this evening. With all that being said, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Motion? Bob, second. Teresa, all in favor? Safe travels.
He never wants